Hi everyone, this is Deanna Fenton with Simple Steps to Online Success. And today I'm going to give you a video overview of really how to get started in creating a WordPress website. We're going to start right at the beginning from registering a domain name. And then I'm going to show you how to create a hosting account. And I'm going to explain all these terms as we go along, just in case it's not familiar to you. And then we're actually going to go ahead and install WordPress on our hosting account. So the first thing that is really necessary is a domain name for your website. And of course, the domain name is really your address on the internet. It's going to be what people type into their internet browser to be able to find your website. And it also could become part of your email address. If you choose to have an email address such as info@mydomain.com, you're going to be doing that based on your domain name, of course. So I have always recommended GoDaddy for registering domain names. And it's just, they're kind of the 800-pound gorilla, I guess, in the industry. There are some challenges in working with GoDaddy. I'm not going to lie to you. I've looked for other alternatives, and I may at some point make some additional recommendations, but for right now, GoDaddy is pretty good. Now, I am going to make a very important point to you, however. I register my domains with GoDaddy, but I do not use them for hosting. So, domain name again is your address on the web. Your hosting account is actually the place, the server, the computer, where all the files related to your website live. The domain name is sort of like a forwarding address. So when someone enters www.deannafenton.com, for example, it points to the computer on the internet where all the files for my website live. I have the philosophy that I keep the domain name account separate from the hosting account. Now, why do I do that? I kind of was taught that because there's a couple of reasons that can be extremely important depending on your business. One is if you have a hosting account and for any reason you're unhappy with it, you have kind of a two-step process to try and get out of that relationship. If you have registered your domain name with your hosting account, you have to transfer the domain away first, and that sometimes takes, a few days, and then go out and get the hosting account to move the actual website. So it's just a little easier because I'm going to show you through this video that when it comes time to telling my domain name to point to the hosting account, it's super simple, and it sometimes just takes minutes. It rarely takes more than a few hours to actually make that change happen. So if I'm in a hosting account, I'm not happy, I move my files to a new hosting account, I go to my domain registrar, and I just change where to find those files, and it's very simple. Something that came up recently that I was not aware of, which is if you have your domain hosted or your domain registered with your hosting account, if somebody hacks your website, they will also have access to your domain name, and they could actually go in there and transfer it away from you. They could change the information on your domain registration to their information and have control. That never occurred to me. I actually saw that mentioned as a reason in a couple places, and if that's not reason enough, I don't know what is. So again, my philosophy, domain registration goes through a domain registrar company like GoDaddy. My hosting account is hosted separately at a company that does that. My recommended company is, especially for people starting out, is Bluehost. And through these videos, I'm going to show you not only how to get that account set up at Bluehost, but we're going to install WordPress there too. So with that introduction, I do just want to say, so we're going to start here now. I've already got a domain registered. In fact, I've got about 100 domains registered. just because you never know when you might need them. So we're going to use an existing domain name that I have. But if you were to look and want to register a brand new domain, you can go to GoDaddy.com, and they have a little search box right here that you can go through. So let's just pretend we're going to register a domain name. And I just registered one recently called the Simple Steps Podcast.com. So I'm just telling you, so this is how the process goes. So let's just say I wanted to register that. I click search domain, and it should come back and tell me it's already registered because I registered it on Monday. Yep, it's not available because I did it, right? So let's just say I wanted to change that, and I decided it was Simple Steps Podcast, my podcast. Let's try Simple Steps, my podcast. And I could do search again. And yep, it's available. So here is another tip for you. And this is kind of one of the things and one of the criticisms that GoDaddy gets is they do constantly try and upsell you, which means once you've indicated interest in a product, they're going to try and increase your order as much as possible by making suggestions. And there's really nothing wrong with that. It's just I want you to be aware. So you're making those decisions with some background that you can make that decision. So if I said I wanted this particular domain, I said I wanted .com, it immediately suggests, well, you might want .net, .info, and .org. And here's the reason why you might want those things. If you have a name, a particularly unique name that you feel is really key to your branding, for example, you might want to protect that domain name, because if you don't register these 3 variations of your domain, somebody else might. In most cases, not a lot of people are going to, look for you under these different names, but if there's a possibility it could cause confusion, you might want to register these and protect them. So what GoDaddy does to encourage that is they're telling you if you register all of these in addition to the one we suggested, that initially wanted, they're going to give you all 3 for $17 a year. That might be worth it to you. It might be cheap insurance to protect your domain name. So I'm going to kind of take you through this. I'm not going to purchase this domain, but I'm going to take you through these steps so you could see. Now also, you can see here, you could select those individually, and it's also giving some different examples. Oh, let me tell you just one thing. When you see a .org, that traditionally has been to indicate a nonprofit. So even if I were to register these, I don't know, in my case, that .org would be necessary because it's not going to be a nonprofit, for example. So if I say, yes, I want these, I'm going to say I want my .com, and I'll say, yes, I want my 3. Now, I can, again, it's giving me more suggestions here. I'm going to continue to cart. But I want you to see something. They are going to continue to try and upsell me. So like I said, here are all the upsells. So step 1, privacy. The reason for privacy is once you've registered your domain, it becomes part of an accessible database called Whois. And it will show information such as who owns this domain, their name, their address, their contact email address, when the domain was registered, when it's due to be renewed, a lot of information. Some of that you may not want to be public for whatever reason. It's just your own personal choice. One of the annoying things is because that's inaccessible, it's public knowledge, you may get a lot of spam, you might get some letters in the mail trying to get you to transfer your domain away. So there are some reasons for protecting that personal information, and but it costs $7.99 per year per domain. Again, it's a personal decision. It hides the personal information, name, email, address, and phone number, etc. So that's one option. We're going to skip that, say no thanks. Now here again, they're going to ask you to host with them. Again, my personal preference and recommendation is not to host where you register your domain. So we're going to say no thank you. Keep going. Email. Now here is something different. Again, I'm telling you kind of the pros and cons of these things just so you can make an intelligent decision and have all the facts. Your email can be part of your domain, or it can be associated with your hosting account. So what is the reason for doing one versus the other? Well, a lot of times it's just very simple in a hosting account to add an email address. It frequently comes bundled as part of the package. As far as the cost, that you have X number of email addresses or unlimited number of email addresses. I initially would always have my email address with my hosting company. I have another option now, which is something called Google Apps. I'm not going to go into that because that could get a little more complicated. But the reason why you might consider paying to have email associated just with your domain and not with the hosting account is if there is a problem with the hosting account and your website goes down, if your email is actually with your domain registrar, you won't lose your email. If your hosting account has your email account with it, if there is a problem with the hosting account's servers and your website goes down, there's a strong possibility your email goes down as well. So you might consider that because, again, that's a little additional protection to keep your email operating if your site goes down. So in this case, it's $3.99 a month. Again, it might be worth it to you to do that, but I'm going to say no thanks and we're going to continue to the cart. And again, as we're going through this, I'm just kind of highlighting some stuff so when you do this yourself, you have an idea. So this is what's interesting. Automatically, the domain that we wanted to register they've selected a 5-year term. You may not want a 5-year term. This may be a domain you're just using to test. It could be any reason, right? So you immediately want to change that. How long should you register it? Well, the minimum is a year. There was at one point a philosophy that if you had it registered for a longer term, it showed you were more serious, and perhaps Google I don't know. I think, especially if you're just testing something, 1 year is fine. Because then you're going to be associated with an annual renewal process, and it might be simpler to remember than to do a 2 or 5, or 3, 5, 10. Now, if there is something associated where you want to protect this domain long term, maybe it's more important to you to do it 5 or 10 years, but it all depends on what your needs are. Again, they're going to try and upsell us a couple more extensions on that domain. You again have the option to make it private. And our bundle offer here, which were those 3 additional extensions there, we changed that to a year as well. And again, few more upsells. At this point, you don't need to do this. You always have to remember you have the option to add these things later on as well. So we're not going to go through because I'm not going to purchase this domain, but at this point you would go ahead and you can round up for charity here. If you have a promotional code, which GoDaddy sends out promotional codes quite frequently, you might want to enter that so you might get an additional discount. You never know. And you proceed to check out. It will go ahead and have you create an account. Please, please, please. Make sure you write down your information and keep it in a very safe place because you are going to create an account. You're going to create a username. You're going to have a customer number. You're going to have something called a security PIN that you choose, which is a 4-digit number that you will need to verify your account if you have to call into support. And I think I said, but of course you're going to have your password. So make sure you write those things down. So that's how you want to register a domain name. And in our next video, we're going to move on to hosting accounts.